Everybody, how y'all doing? It is your girl, your diva in knowledge, Lady Mocha, representing Mocha's Cafe de Paris, where I'm always serving you wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual awareness. Big ups to everyone who has still been faithful followers. I thank y'all so much for still being a part of my journey. Those of you who are new to the channel or you have recently subscribed, I welcome you to Mocha's Cafe de Paris family. If you have not subscribed already, please make sure that y'all do so, and you hit that notification bell. In the event I upload any content, you will not miss out. So moving right along, y'all, I wanted to get into this right away. Very tragic story. Unfortunately, the pandemic has and is still unfortunately impacting a lot of families in some form or another. And the truth of the matter is the pandemic, the COVID, it has affected us and impacted each of us individually in some form or another. Some of us have lost our homes. Some of us have lost our jobs. Some of us have lost our marriages. And in the worst case scenario, a lot of people have lost their lives. So if you're here to still live and tell the story, you're still blessed on that. But maybe you haven't been affected at all. You didn't lose your home. You didn't lose your job. Kudos to you. God must be has favor over you, because a lot of people out here didn't get so lucky. All of us have somehow suffered and lost something very valuable to us. But in this case, without stretching myself too thin, a lot of people have lost something that that is due to the average human being, which is just a home, a place to call your own shelter. And if you're not understanding the significance of it, is because you were blessed to where you was able to pay off your home, or either you're living with someone, or either your rent hasn't gone up, you already had locked into a mortgage before these landlords started really jumping the gun with these prices. So it's a lot of people that have not lost their homes. So of course they're not out here feeling the funk. They're not out here feeling the wrath or dealing with the struggle, unlike a lot of individuals who have been impacted by it. For instance, with my mother, she was living in a residence for 9 years, paying her rent faithfully, never gave people any problems. Soon as the pandemic situation came about, they decided to abruptly impose on her and told her that she was going to have to move because they were planning on selling their home. So a lot of landlords, unfortunately have taken advantage of those who have been very codependent on them. And I get it, we can be judgmental and say that that's why you shouldn't be paying for rent, that's why you should be buying a home. The truth is, everybody don't have it like that. As much as we like to make people feel bad about their choices, some people can't afford to pay a mortgage, to buy a home. Some people have to rent. They have to live in somebody else's household until they get to that place, because things happen. Credit gets bad, depending on if you married somebody that wasn't responsible with your name, or you lost a loved one that left you behind with a lot of bills, or you lost your job. Shit happens. And this we know, but every once in a while you'll get somebody that can be pretty arrogant, and they forget where they come from and act like, something is wrong with the person if something happens or something goes wrong. Some things you got some control over, and there are some things that you just do not. It doesn't matter how responsible you are. It doesn't matter how, dedicated you are to something. Things can still go wrong. Things can still happen. You can be on a job for 30 years, never miss a day, and they decide to lay you off. A lot of us are finding out more and more and more as life goes on how much control we really don't have over a lot of shit that we think we do have control over. So sticking on the subject of people losing their home, in this particular situation, I really felt for this woman. I don't know anything about her, but for her to resort to actually having to take the life of her husband, home father, who was living with them, her son, and her daughter, who was the only one currently still living, but in a critical state of condition, and to not only take her home family out, she took her own life as well. So for this woman to resort to the extreme measures that she did, she evidently did not feel like there was no way out. Usually when it comes to a person deciding to commit suicide, they have reached a point in which they just don't see no way out. They see no hope. The light has completely dimmed on them. They see no light, no sunshine, no way out. And I'm definitely going to be very careful with how I go in on this content, because usually I'm very direct when it comes to people doing things that I feel are wrong. But in this case, I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for this woman, because my mother just recently went through losing her home, and she's been there for 9 years. So your compassion is different when someone you love has gone through something similar, or you yourself have experienced and endured it. You're a little bit more empathetic. A lot of people who aren't empathetic, you know, they can't relate because they never experienced something like this, and it doesn't mean that you can't experience it. Or you've been blessed where you was able to, like I said earlier, you was able to pay your home off, or you know, you was able to have a family member to fall back on. You know, some of us were blessed with having connections and getting extra help, but everybody doesn't have it like that. And when a person has reached a point to where they feel like there's nothing they can do to dig themselves out of a situation, is one or two ways they're going to go about it. They're either going to, one, take the L, deal with the loss, and just try to rebuild. And then you have others, like in this woman's case, who said, you know what, I'm not even going to take myself through this, because I know I'm not in a position to put my family in a whole new home, or me and my family living out in the streets. She, whatever it was, that the mental state of mind that she was going through, she did not see no other way. And it's easy to be judgmental, and it's easy to drag her through the mud, but at the same time, you don't know a person's shoes unless you walk them. And you never know what you're capable of doing until you get in a certain type of situation. So just to kind of give y'all some insight on the story, I'm going to try to read as much of it as I can. This did occur in Clermont County, Ohio. Investigators believe Teresa Kane shot her family members, killing 3 of them just minutes before deputies arrived to serve them with eviction papers. And they were put out of their foreclosed home, says the sheriff. The eviction was the culmination of a long history of financial problems for the family, and appears to be the motive of the murder-suicide that left a total of 4 relatives dead, and the 5th, which is the daughter, fighting for her life. It is tragic and unnecessary, Leah said. What can we do to keep this from happening again? Well, I'm just not sure that we can. When people are in a crisis, not as easy as just reaching out and saying, I need help. They are spiraling. Nothing makes sense, which is so true. What we see here, you can't make sense of this. Murder is a senseless thing, but then you throw in the suicide and the homicide of your family. It's all very sad. The lady had been totally cooperative up to this entire time. So basically, once she knew the foreclosure was going into full motion, she didn't buck the system. You know, she understood that she reached a point in which she just was not able to financially be able to sustain living within that home. She told them she still had a few things left to pack and requested a few extra hours, but would be ready by 10 a.m. She also assured deputies the family had a place to go. But as soon as she saw them approaching, she quickly went inside, the sheriff said. One of the deputies thought that was weird and immediately knocked on the front and the back doors. No one answered. The deputy stepped inside the home and called out to her, announcing the sheriff's office was there. He heard a muffled, "No, no, no, no," the sheriff recalled, followed by a quick succession of gunfire. She fired 5 gunshots, ones they now believe were meant to keep deputies away, and then turned the gun on herself. Deputies found her dead inside, along with her 13-year-old son Ethan Kane, her husband Stephen Kane, 50, and her 74-year-old father William Felton. Samantha Kane, 20, was critically hurt and remains in critical condition at the Cincinnati Medical Hospital. Now the thing was packed. Leading investigators believe Teresa Kane had to hid the addiction from her family right up until she killed them. Detectives found a 38 caliber revolver they believe Teresa Kane used to kill her husband first. He was found on a sofa downstairs. The others, including Teresa Kane, were found upstairs. The sheriff said the investigation determined the victims were awake when they were killed and likely were aware of what was happening. OMG. They also believe Teresa Kane shot them just minutes before deputies arrived. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is now tracing the weapon to see who owned it. You would think, the sheriff said, there would be resources for someone like them, but I think she kept this a very close secret. Hopefully Samantha recovers and could help fill in some blanks. In May 2022, Freedom Mortgage Corporation foreclosed on a home the family lived in since moving to the area from Connecticut in 2015, according to the court filings. It was sold at the sheriff's sale last fall back to the mortgage company, who hired a new crew to remove the family's belongings from the property. The tragedy has hit the community and the New Richmond School District hard. Excuse me. Both Kane children attended New Richmond School. Samantha Kane graduated from North Richmond High School. Ethan was a student at New Richmond Middle School. Counselors have been at the schools all week. The middle school students are lovingly memorializing Ethan with handwritten notes and pictures that fill a bulletin board in the hallway. Superintendent Tracy Miller was at the middle school again Thursday talking with students at dismissal time. Today was more normal than yesterday, and yesterday was more normal than the day before, he said. It will get better day by day. They had a Wear Blue Day for Ethan Day yesterday, and they are adding to the bulletin board. I think the hardest thing is, we'll always have the question, could we have seen something? Is there something we could have done to make a difference in the family's life? And we'll just never know. He said Ethan was a little bit quiet but nice, polite young man. He was very conscientious. Oh Lord, I can't read y'all. Conscientious. Lord, I done just butchered the hell out of that word. I need to get a leapfrog. He just really wanted to do a good job on his assignments and get them all done, and he made sure they were done. He would get upset with himself, and his teachers would say, that's okay, we'll make this work. He took a piece of people's hearts here at the middle school. There was no shortage of Ethan stories. You just talk and remember some of the better times and the importance of taking care of your loved ones. Nobody's promised tomorrow. Look out for each other. Samantha's sorority sisters established a GoFundMe account to help pay for her medical care. Some of the New Richmond School District students are going to get behind the funds, the superintendent says. Samantha currently remains in critical condition in a hospital and would like to try and raise money for any expenses that she might face when she wakes up. So there is a GoFundMe that is available for those who are interested in, helping this young lady, because she's definitely going to have to go through a lot with this once she really realizes that she's the only one left. I could only imagine. Any donations or prayers that you can offer are greatly appreciated, as we want to do everything that we can to be there for her during this time. So far, more than $21,000 has been raised towards $25,000. Many donations are in small amounts from $5 and up. The top donor, who is anonymous, gave $1,000. And Amelia Coffee Shop and his workers just helped out $200 from the Inette de Tomasio and the team at Big B Amelia, and $100 from Mills Family Big B coffee stores. Oh wow, y'all. So just a little bit more information. Stephen Kane, the husband, was known as the lead singer of a local band, Critical Chaos, which plays groove thrash metal music. So in the meantime, the daughter Samantha, she's still hanging on. So we pray that at least she gets through this. However, that's a lot of lives to be lost in one day. So I'm sure anybody who has known the Canes, are friends with them, are related to them, all are impacted by this very tragic situation that had occurred. But I really don't want to too much direct Teresa Kane, who actually decided to take her life, would take her family's life first, in addition to taking her own, because I could only imagine what she was going through And it is very hard once you have become accustomed to living a certain lifestyle. Um, Everybody does not handle um, having to basically start all the way from scratch. Especially when, for the most part, you've always been financially well off and been able to take care of your family. It's a culture shock. It's more of a culture shock, put it this way, for people who have always pretty much been well off and having to downgrade and change their lives significantly versus a person who has always struggled and was blessed to run into a situation in which they were financially, um, financially blessed. They basically walked into money, whether through lotto, whether through an inheritance. The adjustment is not as hard when you're coming from the struggle and you're having to adjust to being able to live well off financially. But it's even more of a struggle for those who have always been pretty much financially well off, and now you have to totally alter your life, alter your spending, alter where you live when you have become so accustomed to your finances always giving you the best of things. And it's not to say that because you're in a struggle you can't have the best of things, but what it does say is now the way you have lived, you done lived in this 8-bedroom house, you're gonna have to downgrade and get a 2-bedroom apartment. Yes, you have been driving these Mercedes, these Mercedes Benz, these BMWs, but now you're gonna have to downgrade and drive a Toyota Camry. When you're not used to being in the struggle, it's really a culture shock. And it's easy for everybody else to be on some, well, that's just life. People lose things. You could go back out there and you can start all over. So what? You lost your 8-bedroom house. You get you another, you just have to settle for a 2-bedroom house. So what if you can't afford to put your kids in the top-notch college universities? Just put them in a community college. That's easier said than done when you have become so accustomed to living a certain way for so long. And truth be told, this is the reason why I am kind of glad that I came up in the struggle, because I've lost some things. Don't get me wrong, we've all at some point in time lost something very valuable to ourselves, whether it was a home, whether it was a car, whether it was a job. But because I've come up in the struggle, it's not a culture shock for me to have to cut back. It's been times when me and my husband was not in the best of space financially, we had to give up a truck that we only had like a year left off on paying it on. We had to, move out of houses that was paid for, but because of falling back and not keeping up with the property taxes and work was slow and things of that nature, we lost a few things, along the way. But as we matured, we understood the value of it, which is the reason why we ended up getting a home that needed some work done to it, but the property was pennies. And that was like maybe 12 years ago, and we've been homeowners now for every bit of like 13, 14 years, I guess. I've learned to just be comfortable just having a nice car. I just paid my car off when 3 days, no, I'll say probably about 5 days ago, because we just got in this week. I just literally gave Toyota my last payment for my 2016 Toyota RAV4. It was supposed to have been paid off since December of last year, but money was moving slow. You know how that is. Sometimes you can just be one paycheck away and things just happen, things come up, and I've seen people lose cars and only had like a year worth of payments. Lose a home and only owe 2 years on it after being there for 14, 15 years. You know what I mean? So you can almost be down to the wire and something can happen. And the sad part is these mortgage companies, these automobile dealerships, they don't spare any mercy on you and say, you know what? No, this customer been doing pretty good with us for almost 20 years. And she's been struggling the last 6 months. let's work something out with her where she can just pay a certain amount a month till she catches up. Now, you do have some mortgage companies, you do have some dealerships that are like that. Like I know Toyota has it to where they could push 3 months of your payments in the back, but once you exhausted all those three, you can't do it anymore. There's been times when things happen, and Toyota did have an opportunity for me to push my payment in the back, and all I had to do was pay a little $20 or $30 to get that extra, courtesy. In one case, I didn't have to pay nothing; they waived it all together, or whatever. But that was just one of the few. Now, when my daughter was falling behind on her car, the finance company she was dealing with, they didn't have nothing to where they could push the payments in the back for you towards the end of you paying your car note off. They had nothing in which they could accommodate her. It's either you pay it or you lose the car. So we end up just giving the car back to them. You know what I mean? So, unless you were born rich with a silver spoon in your mouth, none of what I'm saying to you, you probably can't process it or register it. Maybe you were always fortunate to be able to pay your bills, never dealt with repossessions, never dealt with falling behind and having to file Chapter 13. Maybe you were one of the few that was blessed. But a lot of people, average folks, have not always had that luxury. You just got to be honest with yourself and say, you know what, I can't afford it. It's causing me more stress trying to hold on to it and keep it. I'm going to just go ahead and let it go. I'm not going to wait for them to put me out and evict me. Let me just start packing up my boxes one by one. Let me make it in my mind. The next 2 months I pay, making the payments is just going to be my rent. But I can't stay here and live here for the rest of my life. I just cannot afford it anymore. The principal, the interest is way above my pay rate. Then on top of that, I got to pay utilities. Then on top of that, I have to pay life insurance and all this other stuff. So a lot of people, you do have some people that will utilize their wisdom and realize they're way in over their heads, and they don't care who knows that they lost their house. They don't care who knows that they lost their car. They want their peace of mind. Because it doesn't matter who you try to impress, and I get it. Pride and image is a lot. It means a lot to us. And nobody wants to look like they don't have their shit together. Nobody wants to lose their house. Nobody wants to lose their car. But at the same time, while you're holding on to all of these things, you are losing something. You're losing your peace of mind. You're losing being able to sleep peacefully at night. Because you got to worry about, is the repo man going to pull your car 4 or 5 in the morning when you got to get your kids to school the next day and you got to get to work the next day. Or your car may have one of those which I never mess with those, but you may deal with a dealership who has one of those devices on your car. So if you don't make a payment, you can't even start your car up. You know what I mean? So a tracker. Yeah, that's what they call it. So all of us have fell on hard times. Miss Kane was feeling defeated. And the sad part is that the government is seeing this happen every day. They have not rectified a plan yet that will prevent citizens of the United States from having to go fend for themselves and practically live out in the streets. Now, keep in mind, you do have some homeless people. They don't mind being homeless. And I don't say that to be funny. Some homeless people, they don't mind being homeless because they don't want to deal with the burdens that us hard-working folks got to deal with. They're more at peace with living in the streets, fending for themselves, not having the pressure of paying rent, not having the pressure of paying mortgage. I've heard homeless people in documentaries mention that. And in life, everything has a catch-22. Even you can have it all, but still not have it all. You can not have a lot and still have a lot. It just depends on your state of mind and where you are in life. You have some homeless people way more at peace than those who are rich and in the struggle because they got themselves in excessive debt. They have adopted a lot of bad habits, gambling, bad investments. Sometimes money just brings out the worst in you. It makes you more of what you already are. If you're already greedy in a struggle, you're going to be even more greedy when you get money. If you already got a bad attitude and you're in a struggle, Imagine getting money, being a millionaire. Your attitude just gonna be worse off than what it is. So, money has cursed us in many ways, and it has blessed us in many ways, depending on, how you made use of it. There's a lot of families out here that are really going through it. It just goes to show you. You could be living in one of those beautiful gated community homes, with the beautiful siding, hardy board siding, beautiful driveway with the beautiful green grass, and you have no clue what people are going through in these houses. You don't know how much sleep they're losing at night, wondering when they're going to get that letter from the bank, from the lending company. And that's what happened with, Mrs. Teresa. She knew that the house was going up for foreclosure, and she did not tell anyone. She did not, her own family didn't even know. She did not even tell her own husband. The whole time, this poor lady was holding in, silently in distress, because she did not let her family know, her husband, her immediate family, and her son and her daughter and her father. They had no clue of how much trouble that house was in, because she basically did not tell them. And maybe she did not tell her family out of embarrassment. I'm not quite sure what she did for a living. I don't know if everything was all on her. The details are very vague. If she was the only primary breadwinner and she just couldn't hold it up and she was struggling trying to keep up with them payments, or maybe her husband was working too and giving her money and she wasn't budgeting correctly. This is just my hypothetical answers. I don't have the details on what actually caused, what made her actually fall behind. Was it a loss with her job? All of that is still, the matter is still being investigated. So I'm sure as the story goes, as the investigation continues, we will get more thorough details as to what caused this. But the only thing we can say for a fact is that even the article said it's been years of financial problems. And 9 times out of 10, listen, whenever it comes to an eviction, that wasn't an overnight thing. Unless, like, you stay in public housing, like if you live in the projects, or you somebody getting government assistance and they find out your significant other moved in with you and they've been selling drugs out of your apartment, that automatically by itself will enforce you to have to move within 24 hours. But for the most part, when it comes to mortgage and rent, they normally don't just put you out because you miss a month or two, especially with a mortgage. With rent, the eviction process is a little quicker. It's like maybe 2-3 months. But when it comes to a home, the process is different. It could be anywhere from 6 months to a year by the time they put you out. But it's probably changed. It's probably quicker than that now. Now, that was the last time I remember when we first got our home through a mortgage lending company. But in this day and age, because lenders are so greedy, these finance companies are so greedy, they're probably not even sparing you 5 or 4 months now. They're probably trying to get rid of you within a month or two now, because times have changed and these finance companies are very, very greedy. And they don't want to spare you. It's like they want you to lose your home so they can go ahead and sell it to somebody else. They do not try to work with you. They don't have special programs or anything designed to where people can still pay on their home and not have to worry about losing it through foreclosure. This has been an ongoing problem, and hopefully this does not become a trend where you have husbands, wives that are so overwhelmed and got all this pressure on them that their family is dependent on them for something as simple as a home. 3 basic necessities: food, shelter, and clothing. Those are 3 things really that should be given to us. And I don't mean like given to us like for free, but those are basic necessities that a human being has to have in order to just function with the basics of society. You need food, which they're giving SNAP benefits and stuff like that. They got food banks and stuff. You need clothing. They got places like Goodwill and Salvation Army and stuff. You cannot afford clothing or to get the top of the line. And shelter. Shelter for every citizen in the United States of America. Not one human being, notice I didn't say rich person, poor person, black, white. I said human being should not be deprived of a place to stay. That should be a basic necessity that should be available for everyone. Now I get it. Everybody can't live in an 8-bedroom mansion. I get that. Because I get in this world, we still have to have a balance. Everybody just can't have everything just because somebody else has it. Some of us do got to work a little harder to get certain things in life. But technically speaking, there's too much money in the United States of America for anybody to be living in the streets. When you got all these houses out here in cities like Detroit, cities like Ohio, these poverty-stricken areas, these houses that are in shambles. Them houses could be remodeled. They could create all type of programs for people that are in the struggle to be able to get on their feet. And those who either do right by it, then they'll benefit. Those who choose not to do right because they've been living in the streets, they've been homeless so long, that's their way of surviving, they're not going to make it. And that's fine because they can be dropped for the program and you just keep bringing in other people who will be more liable to do right with the program. But the problem is that the United States, they do not care about their people. They do not care about their people. It's people out here, let me put it this way. There's a difference between losing your home and being homeless. To me, being homeless is that is your way of survival. You have homeless people, they are strong survivors in the midst of homelessness. They don't mind sleeping in the streets. They don't mind building tents and sleeping under bridges. And it's not because they're less humane. I explained it earlier. Everybody has their own way and how they gain peace. And a lot of homeless people, some that I have talked to, they do not want to deal with what we deal with. They don't want to pay light bill. They don't want to pay water bill. They're at peace, living in the cold, living in the hot or whatever. They learn to make do with their circumstances. Then you have those who lost their home, meaning that they are not used to having to fend for themselves in the streets. They have not become accustomed to having to fend for themselves in the streets because they have always had shelter. And you have had landlords, you have had renters that have taken advantage of the basic necessities, which is shelter. And what it has done is it has put people in a place in which people cannot enjoy the privilege of just having a home. I didn't say expensive home. I didn't say 8-bedroom home. I said a home, meaning a stable place to live. And what's happening is you have some of these individuals who have become so accustomed to having the best of everything. And when life happens, meaning you could lose a job, your breadwinner could pass away. When life happens, the people that are left having to figure it out, if they weren't already taught how to survive through the struggle, if you didn't come up in the struggle where you had to eat bologna sandwiches, listen, there been times when me and my husband used to couldn't go out to eat. Go to the grocery store, get some bread, get some bologna, get some Kool-Aid, fry some bologna sandwiches. We have never been too good for that. And to this day, I will eat pork and beans with sausage and rice. I have no problem with lowering my standards. I have no problem with, okay, we can't go out to Red Lobster this weekend. We got to stay home. I got to cook. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with humbling myself to that because I'm used to the struggle. But again, people who are not accustomed to having to live the struggle, they cannot handle being evicted. They cannot handle that. That's why you have a lot of millionaires. We've heard the stories of millionaires who came close or who discovered they were going to lose it all. And once they discovered they were going to lose it all, they actually lost their sanity. They lost their mind behind it. They didn't see no other way. They were not going to go back to having a downgrade, having a struggle, having to rebuild. So they took the only way out they knew, which is through suicide or homicide, murder, well, called murder suicide, taking your life as well as the family's lives. We've seen men do it. We've seen successful men who have lost everything, lost their big time career as a lawyer, as a doctor, because they was doing something shady, or they were living a double life that caught up with them, and to only find out they were going to lose everything. They were not going to face having to fall from grace in front of the world. So instead, they took the way they felt was the easiest out and less humiliating, which was taking their own lives and taking their families' lives. And that's what Teresa did. She did not want to resort to having to start from scratch. She did not want to lose that big old beautiful home that she's become so accustomed to having. She did not want her to have to answer to her children when they ask, why do we have to move? Why do I have to change middle schools? Why do I have to, you know what I mean? Not only that, she was taking care of her father. So it sounds like to me Teresa was, and I could be wrong, was one of those women that was really trying to do it all. She was really trying to, take care of everyone and everything. She had her father in her home. I mean, her father's not in a nursing home. Her father's not staying with another relative. He was staying with her. So again, the details are very vague. I don't know what her husband did for a living other than, he was a part of a rock band. Hopefully this poor woman wasn't the only one that was making money in that household, because if that was the case, then it would only make sense, which I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the method she used. However, I can't really judge her on that, because when you feel like your whole world is crumbling around you like the Twin Towers, and you just know it's getting ready to hit, and there's absolutely nothing you can do, and put it this way, sometimes you can't always ask for help, because sometimes your situation is way too heavy. One thing, if you got to borrow $500, and there's another thing when you got to borrow $500,000. It's easy to say, well, all she had to do was ask for help. All she had to do was see if somebody would look out for her. Depending on how much debt she was in, there's just no way in the world somebody could have pulled her out of that situation. Her burdens could have been $200,000 worth of burdens, $500,000 worth of burden, $100,000 worth of burden. You have people, unless you're lucky to have rich folks in your family, you have people that have too much debt for somebody to help them clean up. It's just impossible. Listen, your girl Mocha, I might can give you $20. I'm gonna be honest with you. I give you $20, but when you start asking for $200 or more, listen, I ain't got it like that. $200, I know you're like, that ain't no money. What the hell? What's that? What's $200? That's a whole lot for me, because I ain't working. I'm just taking some classes right now. I'm working towards something so I can start back working again. So I'm taking some classes right now. So the little bit of money I do be making, I don't have it like that. You know what I mean? So I try to make sure I put myself in a situation in which nobody has to dig me out of a deep hole. When you listen, the way I look at it is debt. Debt is modern day slavery. Debt is the biggest form of slavery. And this is not to disrespect what we went through with our ancestors, but if you think about it, just like a lot of, Africans were held captive and taken away from their roots, and they become slaves of other races who have abused their power and abused their authority. That's the same way debt works. Debt is a whole new form of captivity. It holds you hostage. It puts you in a place in which you are constantly under the authority of your job, because you can't quit your job. You got to pay that debt. You under the authority of the mortgage company, because you got to keep paying that mortgage. You're under the authority of these dealerships, because you have to keep making payments on these vehicles. It keeps you hostage. It keeps you in modern day slavery. Debt is a new modern day slavery. You can't, just like we couldn't tell our masters no, you can't tell debt no. And guess what? Back then, if you told your master that had authority over you in a plantation that you wasn't going to do something that he asked you to do, you knew there would be some heavy repercussions that's coming behind it. Same thing with debt. You could tell debt, no, I'm not paying you this month. No, I ain't paying you for another 2 months. Guess what? That debt is going to come back and whip that ass. Act like you don't want to pay it. Just open the mailbox and you see the bills piled left and right, and you just close that mailbox back and you act like you ain't seen that damn bill. Guess what? That bill going to still keep coming, and that debt going to still keep increasing. It's not going anywhere just because you're ignoring it. And you have so many people that have become so infatuated with their image and their lifestyle, and just to know that it's all going to go away, like a freight train is coming and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Some people will actually jump over the deep edge, and that's what Miss Kane did. This lady saw that she was going to have to uproot her family from the big old beautiful fine home they've been living in, around the neighbors who seem like they got their shit together, because you don't see foreclosure on their homes. You don't see up for sale on their homes. That's a lot of pressure. That's why sometimes you have to be careful. You got to be realistic with your situation. You cannot do what other people can do. Just because your friend got a new car, you can't run out there and get a new car. Just because your neighbor got their whole home remodeled and yours is raggedy, you can't just go up and do what they could do. You can do it, but you have to use due diligence. You have to save up. You have to come up with a plan, pay a little at a time. All of us are not in a position to make those big jumps like that. Some of us have to gradually work on things a little at a time until things get better. And a lot of us have pride. Sure, it's easy to say, you could have came to me, maybe we could have did something, maybe we should have did something. Listen, there was nothing no one could have done to help Miss Kane, so she felt anyway. So she felt. And then you have a lot of these people that say that if you need me, come to me. If there's a way I can help you, let me know. And as soon as you come to them, they're looking at you with the side eye like, I don't know what you're telling me for. I'm really not in a position to help you. And you do have people that got family who got money, and they will watch and see you sink. Now, I'm not talking about somebody who's just flat out irresponsible, taking their money, spending it on drugs, just doing dumbass stuff. If you already have a long, extensive history of being irresponsible when it comes to your money, you're going from place to place, you're going from job to job, you're getting fired for all kind of foolishness, then people have the right to not help you, because you've already shown that you're not responsible and you're not trustworthy. But it's people, for the most part, who've always handled their business, always paid their mortgage, always been on point. Things happen, and when things happen, no one will really come to their rescue. No one will come to their rescue. And you're not going to understand it until the shoe is on your foot. It's easy for you to say what a person should do, what they could do, why you ain't go pawn a title to your car until you caught up. I mean, what good is that when mortgage is due every month? What good is that when car note is due every month? How many times, you know what I'm saying, you going to keep getting loans and loans and loans. Loans got to be paid back. She probably tried everything, I'm sure, for her to get to this breaking point, she probably tried everything. She probably exhausted all loans, exhausted all excuses, exhausted all means to try to dig herself out this hole. I'm sure she probably exhausted every way possible, which is probably why she got to a breaking point where, you know, I really cannot do it. And we could call it selfish. We could say, you know, how dare she do that, or whatever the case is. You don't know what's going through a person's mental psyche. Maybe her way of taking her family out was, I don't want my family left here having to struggle, having to suffer. I don't want my family having to deal with the burdens of not being able to have a place to stay. And a crazy way, and I'm just saying, I don't know, that was her way of showing how much she loved her family. I'm not going to leave y'all here to struggle with this, and I'm not going to be here either. Now, I'm just saying that probably was her way. Or she could have been thinking, I'm taking everybody out with me. I'm not going down by myself. I'm not going to go out in this world suffering and dealing with this pain on my own. So I'm going to take my whole family through it too. I'm going to let them have to deal with the pain like I had to deal with it. We'll never know what was her reasoning behind her actions. We can only hypothetically guess and assume, but we do have the facts. We do know that this has been a long time coming. This has been an ongoing financial hardship for Miss Kane. From what I've been hearing, she does not seem like a person who's had a bad attitude about life. She does not seem like a person who is very troubled. But what tends to happen is, you don't have to be a troublesome person for trouble not to come to you. Trouble doesn't discriminate. Trials and tribulations do not discriminate. Doesn't matter if you black, white, rich, poor, middle class, high class. Trouble is going to find a way to knock on your door. We all are going to get tested. And it's up to you how you react to unpleasant circumstances. Nobody likes to lose a home. Nobody likes to lose a job. Nobody likes to lose a loved one. But you can either take that loss and apply it as a lesson. And you know what? She didn't give it a chance. She don't know how things could have worked out in her favor. She probably would have got a cheaper house and probably would have enjoyed it. If not less, more. Because she would get to see that, you know what? My house may not be as big as my last house was, but I can afford it. I can afford this house. The light bill, the water bill in this 2-3 bedroom apartment is not as much as I was paying for in that 5-6 bedroom house. She didn't even give it a chance to see it through, to see how God still could have gave her peace and gave her grace on being able to deal with having to change her lifestyle, having to rearrange, you know, her finances. A lot of times what we think we need so bad is really not a need, it's a want. Long as you have a place to stay, it's better than no place at all. A job is better than no job. People complain about their job. I don't like this piece of shit job, and but at least you got a job to complain about. You got people that want to work and can't work because they got disabilities or they got criminal records. People won't hire them for all kind of reasons. So you got to count your blessings. If too many things like this start happening across the United States of America, the government, would they uncompassionate asses, they're gonna have to come up with another plan. And hopefully, I don't want to say this, but hopefully something good will come out of this situation, and they really realize that families are being impacted by losing their homes, and maybe they'll come up with some type of bill of rights for renters. But they have to lower the rent. I really feel like if the rent was lowered, that would pretty much balance and even out the economy. I'm not saying that they need to make things rent-free or mortgage-free, but you have to bring it back down in order for the economy, for people, for consumers to get back in the groove of actually buying and purchasing homes. As long as listen, I know apartments in the hood. I'm talking about boys in the hood. okay? They want almost $1,500-$1,800 for it. And I'm like, you know what? Y'all are just being greedy as hell. Y'all know damn well a lot of them apartments ain't no worth no 1,800-1,900. They got people paying rent prices. I guarantee you, it's a crazy lesson, all of this. If it ever were to go that way and the government would regulate these renters and bring the rent back down to 7, 8, or or 600 or whatever, I guarantee you, people not gonna mind buying a home after all the money they be spending on these raggedy ass apartments. I guarantee you, people who pay 1,800-1,900 for rent in the hood, if the government proposes a new bill and says from here on out, renters are not allowed to charge over this certain amount of money based off of this person's income or whatever, I guarantee you, people will be grateful. People will pay that $500-$700 of rent like it ain't nothing. I'm sure after this, if the government gets a hold and starts placing restrictions or limitations on how these landlords and finance companies are able to charge people, people will be forever grateful, especially after what we've gone through. And we were one of the ones who dodged the bullets because we owned our home. But I guarantee you, we still don't own our home. But I guarantee you, everybody else, this is going to motivate people to buy a home. After realizing they have to pay $1,800-$1,500 a month to stay in the damn projects, people are going to be more than motivated to get a home. But at the same time, these mortgage companies, they be wanting people to put down 5, 6, 10,000. How can people grow and better themselves when you're living in an apartment where your rent is so high? If you want to move out and get yourself a home eventually, you can't. Just renting out is $1,500-$1,800 a month. And again, we're not talking about the rich folks. We're not talking about the rich folks who are not in a situation, who don't have to, who are already well off, who are already well set. We're not talking in relation to those. Talking in relation to these individuals that are average folks that are just trying to make decent means from paycheck to paycheck. They're just trying to make a decent living. Anyway, y'all, this has been a very, very tragic situation, man. If they don't get a hold and start doing something quick with these renters' rights, it's going to be like a domino effect. A lot of people may start looking at it like this may be the only way out. I got to take myself out and take my family out. That's what's going to start happening if the government does not get a hold of these landlords that are abusing, rent gouging, finance companies, mortgage gouging, because y'all adding on interest rates. And it's the big boys who appear stealing. It's the CEOs. It is the directors. It's the top dogs that are going around here stealing. They're so worried about the middleman or the little man like us stealing. They are the biggest thieves in God's creation. It's the CEOs that's taking all of these, buyers' monies and they're making a living off of it. They're scheming, they're plotting, they're investing. It's just a lot of shady ass stuff going on. And then y'all have the audacity to want to allow other people from other countries to come and survive and live in the United States. Y'all not even taking care of y'all own people. I'm not trying to be funny, but y'all need to start with taking care of y'all own people who live here. We don't need no more other races, other ethnicities. I'm sorry, we don't need to be opening the door to nobody else until our own people is straight. You got people in the United States that don't have a place to stay. Then on top of that, they're getting mad with homeless people because homeless people are sleeping any and everywhere. Well, there's one area in where I live at in Georgia, and these homeless people stayed under this bridge for years. Now, mind you, they never caused any trouble, never did anything to really bring high alert attention to that area, and just all of a sudden, they decided to close down that area. And it wasn't really no reason to close down because it was not impeding traffic. It was not near a place where children live, because I get it, homeless people, you got all kind of red sex up in it. You get a little bit of anything and everything because of the homeless population. But where they were living, it was not hazardous or a safety issue to children and elderly people. It was in an area under a bridge in which they were not nearby any neighbors. They were only neighbors to each other. And my thing is, You're not going to give them a place to stay, but at the same time, you're going to take away any little place where they try to find a sanctuary, where they just want to sleep and eat. That's being a human being. We all need a place to stay. You need a place where you can wash your ass, make a sandwich, wash your clothes, so you can go to work and stuff the next day. These people don't have the basic necessities. And when they do find a safety haven, y'all strip them of that. You know, and a lot of people out here kind of know that's what the homeless people are facing. That's why you got people like Miss Kane. They say, oh, hell no. I'm not even going to let it get to that point to where me and my family living out in the streets. Me and my family find somewhere to go. We get put out of again. No, I'm taking my whole family out. Because I already know what's coming. We're not going to get help. We're not going to get assistance. The government's not going to step in. I'm not going to live through this. She reached her breaking point because we don't have, you cannot have faith in the government anymore. You cannot have faith in nothing in the United States. The United States does not look out for its people. And it's so sad, but there's going to be many more that's going to lose their homes, many more foreclosures, many more houses going up for sale, unless the government intercedes and does something different. Hopefully, this does not become a trend in which people start taking the lives of all of their loved ones because they don't want to have to live and survive in the streets and in the struggle. So anyway, y'all, leave y'all comment below. Listen, I know this is not the top of the line type of content. I'm not dragging sisters. I'm not dragging black men. I know this is not entertaining, but don't get me wrong. I'm going to get back into the dragging. But today, I just felt like this is a very serious issue that we don't need to keep overlooking and acting like it doesn't matter. You got people out here struggling. They're trying to take care of their family, trying to take care of their parents. They don't want to put their parents in a nursing home. It's a lot of stuff that's going on, y'all. So anyway, please keep the Canes, keep their families and their friends and your prayers. Don't forget to GoFund, if you can send $5, $10, something to contribute to the family and the daughter who is still hanging on to her life as well. So anyway, y'all, please hit that like button. Hit it right now before you leave. It's your girl, your diva in knowledge, Lady Mocha. Represent Mocha's Cafe de Paris, where I'm always serving you wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual awareness. Ladies, if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to Mocha's Ladies Lounge, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. Be blessed.